And I guess if we could, would it be possible to bring in the guests so they could introduce themselves as well when we get to that point? We'll start with the committee. I'm Tanya Bodell. I'm the chair of the Alternative Energy Committee for Cohasset. I am also a consultant to the electrical energy space, and I am the president of the Northeast Energy Commerce Association. And it's my pleasure to be the president of this committee. Debbie, would you like to go next? You're on mute.
Oh, I'm just thrilled to be on and ready to work hard. So that's
excellent. Steve?
Hi, I'm Steve Winter. I'm a longtime member of the committee. Right now, I'm chair of the Aggregation subcommittee. I've just passed off a bunch of my assignments to Debbie.
Excellent. Pat?
Pat Gooding. I've been with the committee since 2014, and this past year was the vice chair.
Great. Adam?
Hey, how's it going? Adam Amon, first year committee member. I work for an independent power producer based out of Boston. Happy to help, happy to answer some questions, and hopefully we have some successes here. Great.
Steve Girardi?
Past vice chair of the Alternate Energy Committee. Currently water commissioner for the town of Cohasset, and I'm the engineering manager for the Hingham Municipal Light Plant. I just got off storm duty. All of our customers are back online, and I am part of the microgrid subcommittee.
Perfect. And Ellen?
Hi, I'm Ellen Marr, and I am one of the liaisons from the Cohasset School Committee.
Great. So welcome to our liaisons, and then if you want to, Michelle, bring in the guests to introduce themselves, and then we'll put you back into guest mode, if that's okay. Okay, Chris. Hi, Chris. You want to introduce yourself?
Okay.
You're on, and mute's off, so we can hear you. Steve Brown, why don't you go first?
Hi, everyone. This is my first time participating in watching this group. I'm a member of First Parish, which is directly across from Town Hall, across the Commons, and we intend to put in a solar array along with storage, part of our attempt to live our values. And also we'd be very interested in when we get to the stage of your planning, when it's possible to involve us as one of the, either in the muni grid or in an earlier phase. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Steve Byrne.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
My name's Steve Byrne. I work for Citizens Energy Corporation. We're based in Boston. We work closely with Chris Bluer and Schneider Electric, and we have been doing a lot of research and watching how municipalities are reacting to resiliency efforts, MVP reports, hazard mitigation plans, and we are we're really a solar developer. I'm in charge of storage and microgrids. So we were tipped off on your solar RFP, and we had reached out to a couple of people, your town manager, and then eventually we got in touch with Michelle, who suggested that we attend this meeting and get in touch with you guys, because we are interested in, your presentations that you've put together are really probably the top that we've seen, at least that I've seen. Chris has, with Schneider Electric, has seen a little bit more than I have, but we're interested in hearing more and getting as involved as we can with the town of Cohasset.
Great, we appreciate that. And Chris, are you able to introduce yourself?
Yes, can you hear me at all?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I was having a little trouble. Chris Bluer from Schneider Electric, and as Steve said, we work together on these types of projects, and we saw the solar RFP. We saw, and our ears went up when we saw the word microgrid. But essentially, this is the type of project that Schneider Electric excels in. Schneider Electric is based out of Andover, Massachusetts, and again, impressed with the PowerPoint that we saw that around microgrid. So curious about learning more and offering any services or thoughts that we can in support of your efforts. So thank you very much.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Michelle. If you could put our guests back as guests. Guests, if you have a question at any point, you can either put it in the Q&A down at the bottom, or if there's a broader conversation, you can put in a summary of what you'd like to say, and then Michelle could bring you forward as part of the conversation. But we will try to keep some of that to a minimum so we can work through our agenda. All right, so the first thing is, I just want to confirm that each member of the committee has gotten sworn in by the clerk. Yes, put your thumbs up if it's yes. And I know Steve and Pat, you are. Okay, awesome. Also, just a reminder, I'm not going to make you say whether you have or have not taken the training, but we do have to take ethics training every 2 years. So if you have not, all right, Adam and Debbie, well done. So if you haven't taken it within the last 2 years, Steve and Pat, we probably should, but thank you for taking that ethics training. I think it is very important, and it's always a good refresher to walk through and understand what we need to do to keep our noses clean and in abidance with state laws. Then the next thing we need to do, and we can either do it at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting, it's up to this committee, is it's time to vote for leadership for 2020 to 2021. We did this a year ago, and right now I'm the chair, Pat's the vice chair. Do we have a formal secretary?
No.
Okay, we don't have a formal secretary.
Last year or so.
So, I guess why don't we have a discussion about this, and then why don't we think about doing it as a vote at the end, if we would like. Is there anybody who would be interested in taking on leadership or the secretary position? We can also keep rotating the secretary position, but they do request that we have the leadership identified.
I think you're doing a fine job, Tanya.
Okay, thank you. If everybody is okay with it, I wouldn't mind taking another year in the leadership position, but then I would be very interested in having somebody take on, most certainly I can continue to be a very strong participant on the board, on the committee, but if there's somebody who would like to take on a bigger role, I am very open to that.
I'm only assigned for a year, so I can't be committing to a leadership role until I get extended for 3.
Well, if you want to be secretary, you could. Adam, take the notes on a regular basis. Okay, poor Pat.
My fingers don't work.
And we're expecting that you're going to be able to renew. So just keep doing what you're doing, and you will have you too will have a 3-year term.
Yeah.
All right, let me go back to the agenda. Okay, so we'll come back at the end to do an official vote. Let's review actually, I don't know if we can go to the end since we've got the timing. If everybody's okay, it seems to be there's somewhat of a consensus. Pat, would you like to continue on with the vice chair position?
I'm happy to have somebody else step up to do it. You know, Steve, I don't know if you'd be interested, or Adam. I mean, I feel, Deborah, anybody, but I mean, I feel as though it's good to rotate around a little bit and let other people have the benefit.
Well, I don't really feel capable of doing it at the moment. Might feel differently in a couple months, but right now I don't feel like I can commit.
Okay. Debbie, how about yourself? Would you like to sort of settle in for a year before taking?
Well, what about maybe reviewing it in 6 months and maybe not doing it for an entire year. I just feel like I want to, you know, sort of, I mean, this is complex stuff. So I feel like I want to get my feet a little wetter before I would jump into something. And even like taking notes, I wouldn't even mind being a secretary, but I still need to, I feel like I need to get up to speed about language and things like that. So, so I don't know if there's any thought about maybe just reviewing in 6 months.
Well, Debbie, I'd like to nominate you to be secretary because I'm happy to review the notes and add in language. As Pat says, is that a second, Adam?
It doesn't for me.
Jeez, I can't believe I just Googled my way in.
Terminology, just ask us. We'll
All right, any discussion?
Oh my God, talk about railroaded.
Oh my gosh, welcome to my world last year. Everybody raise your hand. Oh, we have to do a roll call vote, sorry. So the motion is that Debbie is secretary, made by Tanya, seconded by Adam. And we'll do a roll call vote. Tanya Bodell, aye.
Patricia Gooding, aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Debbie Cook.
Most importantly.
Abstain. No, I'll say yes, but.
Okay, thank you. That's perfect. And then I would also like to nominate Pat to be vice chair. Is there a second?
Aye.
Thank you, Adam. Any discussion? All right, why don't we do roll call vote? Tanya Bodell, aye.
Adam Amon, aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Aye. Okay. Patricia Gooding.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good resume builder right there.
And then just if somebody would like to make a motion for the chair, make a motion in a second, and then we'll.
Motion to nominate Tanya Bodell as chairperson.
Adam Amon, aye.
Adam seconds. Any discussion? Why don't we start with Steve?
Steve Winter, aye.
Adam?
Adam Amon, aye.
Pat?
Patricia Gooding, aye.
Debbie?
Oh.
Aye.
And Tanya Bodell, aye. Okay, great. This is great. I think it creates some nice continuity. It continues with the next. And Pat, don't be willing to step down so quickly because in 1 year, I think we may need some new leadership. All right, very good. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for your commitment to this committee. We're next going to go to the meeting minutes. We circulated around the August 12th, 2020 final draft of the meeting minutes and the September 10th, 2020 draft of the meeting minutes. Let's start with August 12th. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to review, but we'll just take a minute so you can refresh yourself. And then once you're ready, if I could get a motion.
Is it possible, by the way, and I don't know if you guys work this way, but to toss all of these meeting minutes into a shared folder that we can access on Outlook?
They are all online. So if you
they are?
go to the town webpage, and we'll put this into the meeting minutes. If you go to the town webpage, go to government, go to Alternative Energy Committee, and you read about our committee, and you'll see your names there, committee members. You then see a link to our agenda, which have to be posted 48 hours in advance, and our meeting minutes. And they're all listed. And we've also taken great pains to make sure in our meeting minutes, to the extent there are presentation slides, that we include those in the meeting minutes as screenshots. So it's a good place to start.
I only see the agenda, so I might just need a link. Sorry.
Okay,
but,
I can send you the link.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Anya, can I ask a question about the responsibility? Can we talk offline about, I mean, is it a responsibility of the secretary to post the meetings? Who posts? We'll talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I get the job
Okay. Yep, we can talk about, basically we can talk about it here, even though it's administrative, but we have a, we're doing the meeting minutes right now, but basically you draft the minutes, send them to me. I refine them with the language we had been that used or clarifications needed. that's a final draft. We bring it to the committee to vote on it, to accept. Once it's accepted, I've been turning it into final and then sending it for posting to the town. So we can continue doing that, but if you then, once the committee votes it as a final accepted minutes, if you wanted to take on that last step, I'd be happy to have you do that, but we can walk through that detail.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later, about maybe the role in expanding it or however.
Perfect. Right. So hopefully you've had a moment to review the minutes from August 12th, 2020. Do I have a motion to accept?
I can't make a motion because I was not present for the meeting. Do we have other people that were present for the meeting?
Actually, that was before the new committee, so we might have a lot of people who have to abstain. But that's all right. We'll just take a vote for the people who...
I'm sorry, which meeting was that?
This is for August 12th, 2020.
August 12th, yeah, I was there. So I can make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, and I'll second, and I think we're the only ones. We might have to, just because of lack of people, we might have to wait till Mike Schmidt is back, because I think he was there, and Tyler, well, Tyler is...
I think Mike took the minutes, right?
Right.
And I wasn't approved by then.
Right. All right. Well, you know what? This is, I'll check with the town on what you do about this when you've had a change in the committee and not everybody's there. So we have a motion. Why don't we resolve this motion? At least do an initial vote. If we have to rescind the vote and then do another vote, we'll do that. Tanya Bodell, aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Okay. And I think that's the only people who were there. So I will check to see if these can be approved with the two people who were there approving them, given the fact that Mike took the minutes. And if not, we'll bring it back to the next meeting. Okay, the next set of meeting minutes, I think everybody was on the committee then, is the September 10th, 2020. You could take a moment, and then if I could get a motion to approve.
Want me to do it? Motion to approve meeting minutes?
Thank you, Adam. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? All right, let's roll call vote. Steve, why don't you start?
Steve Winter, aye.
Adam?
Adam Amon, aye.
Pat?
Pat Gooding, aye.
Debbie?
Aye.
And Tanya Bodell, aye. All right, so thank you. Those minutes are approved. Very good. Okay, now onto the fun stuff. The renewable energy procurement. Michelle, do you want to give an update on where we are? Keeping in mind, everything is obviously public, and we may or may not have potential bidders attending.
Sure. Okay. So as we know, we issued the RFP. Originally, we had the date by October 12th was our due date. We have since pushed that off with an addendum because a lot of people were asking for time due to our inability to have the site walkthrough because of COVID and schools being open and various reasons. But we were able to pull off a Zoom site tour, which was fabulous. For anyone that saw it and attended, I think you can say it was actually pretty exceptional. Tanya did a fabulous job at it. High level, we sent the RFP to 44 companies. Not all are, some are just construction companies. Some are bid warehouse companies. The number of participants for the live Zoom tour is about 25. The tour lasted about 2.5 hours. We were able to answer many questions. I think there are 3 questions that still remain unanswered, and we are going to have difficulty getting answers to those questions. It doesn't seem like those 3 questions have prohibited anyone from responding, and we haven't heard much since. There are a total 25 documents that have been uploaded to a Dropbox for all companies who are interested in responding. The new deadline dates for submission are October 23rd at 11 a.m. We anticipate evaluating everything by October 30th. The week of November 9th, we're hoping to schedule some interviews. And for selection and negotiations, we're heading towards November 18th. We hope to have the contract awarded by December 4th, and then kick everything off for the new calendar year.
Excuse me, Michelle, what was the date, the selection date, November what?
November 18th.
Thank you.
But I think the process is going well. We've issued, I believe at this point, 6 addenda for this RFP based on questions, changes of dates, things of that nature. It's going smoothly. Had a couple of questions come in after the Q&A date was released. Unfortunately, due to procurement, we're not able to answer those unless we decide to send out another addendum, but typically we won't send out an addendum for one unanswered question. But the process is going well. Does anyone have any questions about it?
Yeah, so in terms of the Outlook responses that we're receiving to the solar RFP distribution group, yep. I don't see any replies from us. Are all those questions being compiled into an Excel file, and is somebody responsible for responding to those questions, or were all the questions answered in the in-person?
Nope. So we have answered all the questions by issuing an addendum. There are about 44 questions on that list, and that is comprised of questions that were asked both during the tour and ones that were emailed to the solar RFP inbox.
Okay, just checking because I haven't responded to anything. I've just been letting you guys run with it, of course. And I sent it out to all the contacts that I had. And then the response that I provided was always, if you have any questions, reach out to the solar RFP distribution group. So yeah, I just want to be helpful, but I felt that I didn't necessarily know how to be helpful. I was just sort of sitting in the background waiting for you guys to reach out to me if you needed anything. So I'm glad everything is running smoothly and you guys are taking care of it.
Yeah, thank you.
It makes my life easier.
Well, we are really going to need your help when it comes to the evaluation process.
Yeah, I know.
I was going to say, enjoy it for now. Michelle, can you identify where or how, I don't know if you can share your screen or I can share the screen and take us to where the answers are. I think you probably know how to get there by heart. Walk us through where the procurement.
It's 8 o'clock.
Data is.
8 o'clock. Whoever had that on. Let me see if I can get you there on the Cohasset website.
Oh, it's on the Cohasset website.
On the Cohasset website. So it's in 2 different places. Everything is uploaded to the Cohasset website under the RFP bid portion. And then we also created a Dropbox for everybody that inquired. They have access now to this Dropbox so they can receive the files from there as well.
And you got compliments from 2 of the people that are on this call right now. So obviously you guys have done a good job in terms of compiling all the information and making it easy for everyone to find. So I think we're moving in the right direction in terms of coordination and compiling everything that everybody's looking for. And I've heard no from the people that I've contacted, like everything is going directly to you guys. So I'm glad that they're not coming directly to me.
And I'm trying to get to the site. Unfortunately, my computer is telling me, oh, here we go.
So I'll talk over as you're pulling it up, just so that then you can share your screen. So the way that I get there is go to the cohassetma.org website. Then at the top, there's a government. You click on government and it pulls down a list of all of the committees. You then go to the Alternative Energy Committee. And on the Alternative Energy Committee, there's a link to the Solar Energy RFP. Solar Energy RFP is under the Procurement section of the website. And it includes all of the documents that have been upgraded.
Tanya, can you see the screen?
Yes, it's perfect.
Oh, okay, so if you walk through, just as Tanya suggested, you go to the government page and you're going to go to procurement. Once you're in procurement, you're going to go on the bids page. And then you're going to click on the lease of real property for solar. And here you will see all the documents. And one thing we did find about this is when you load items up here, they load in the form of a PDF. And many companies asked if we could share in Word format so they could track changes in both the power purchase agreement and the site lease agreements. So in the Dropbox version, we were able to load the Word version so they can track changes there.
And the answers are which link?
Number 3, number 2, number 1. Number 2. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I'm going to, these are just various addendum. I don't have them memorized as to which is what. Well, let's just take a look. Okay, so here is the schedule change, is addendum number 3.
Yeah, don't click 2. It didn't work.
What do you mean it didn't work?
Well, you could try it. See if yours works. Mine didn't work. Rather than going back, just go to the other tab. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
huh,
so.
Interesting. All right, so let me hang on one second.
I think let's move on for this meeting. I think, was there an addendum 4 and 5? Because I didn't see those. So let's check and make sure the questions are uploaded. And I think it's very important. I think we've also sent those in the Dropbox and sent them around to the bidders. So they should have the answers to those questions.
They're definitely in the Dropbox. And I will send the Dropbox link to everyone on the committee so you can poke around there as well.
Very good. Okay, that's good. Thank you. And the status of third-party site outreach, we have encouraged, and this was done in the RFP document as well as during the virtual site tour, we have encouraged the bidders to contemplate third-party sites. There was an article, as you know, in the Cohasset Mariner that talked about why third-party sites might be the more viable opportunity, but that we don't know. The whole goal of this is to understand what all the options are that are available to the town, whether it's a third-party site with a lease payment, a town site with no lease payment, or another public site that we might be able to use. And I think the only item that we had on our list was looking at the MBTA site developer to see if they were interested in submitting a bid corresponding to the timing of our current RFP for the solar energy array on the town sites. And Adam, did you look into that?
I have not, no.
Okay. But I think we did send the RFP to the MBTA. So let's make an action item, because that MBTA site is an interesting opportunity and we would like to understand what the potential pricing is. Adam, if you could, as an action item, just follow up. If they are intending to bid on one of the town sites, we cannot talk to them about that, but we can talk to them about a potential third-party site, which is outside the scope of the RFP.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to give an update now, or do you want me to give it later?
Oh, do you have an update?
Well, it's basically what I said to you in email, but I can give it over this.
Yeah, why don't you give us an update?
Yeah, so what we know as of now, Omni Novatus was the counterparty that won the contract from the MBTA. They sold the rights to the facility and other facilities located in Massachusetts to a company called True Green Capital. They rebranded themselves to Distributed Asset Solutions. And our point of contact is a gentleman over there by the name of Matt DeSorbo. He's managing the development of the Cohasset MBTA solar station. And he has deprioritized Cohasset because of the inability of getting the interconnection as quickly as he would have intended. And there's somewhat of a concern in terms of the easement that is required to get that interconnection. So he is working on some other sites in Massachusetts first. He plans on focusing on Cohassets probably in Q1 and Q2 of 2021. And like I had mentioned to him, not knowing exactly what the easement issue and the interconnection issue that he's running into at the moment, but if there's any way that we can help from town-owned land, that's certainly a conversation that we can have to assist in them expediting the development of that canopy project. So waiting to hear back from Matt. I think he's speaking to his team, looking at different ways in which they can approach this, but at the moment we don't have clarity around how quickly this thing is going to get built. And like I emphasized with him, a majority of the people that live in Cohasset right now are not commuting into the city. The MBTA station is completely empty and perfect time to build. So if it can be done during this COVID time, I think it would be preferable for commuters, it would be preferable for the town. Obviously there's limitations for National Grid, but we'll see how this all transpires. So we'll stay on top of them. I'm not sure whether or not they're involved in the other process, the other RFP. Their primary focus at the moment is bringing those MBTA stations and energizing them as quickly as possible.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Adam?
Just to let you know, I'm helping Matthew DeSorbo from True Green work with National Grid. I have some design plans he's going to propose to them, so they won't need easements.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's what I figured as well.
I could be wrong.
So there's ways. I mean, once you get into the easement talks, I mean, for us, for Hingham Light, it was no secret. I mean, it was so bad. It took 4 years. We just finally energized the last one last week. So yeah, I'm working with helping Matthew out. Come on, tell him some ideas to get it flying.
We'll see. Great deal. I got a lot of other things on the fire. So.
Hey, Steve, Steve Girardi, if you could put yourself on mute. I think that might be your background. So I guess if Adam, you and Steve could both send a message to them that Q1, Q2 may be too late. Assuming we have a successful, or if we have a successful request for proposal for a solar energy array on the town sites, even if their site is more competitive, we would be going forward and filling, without the information, we could be going forward and filling the town's remaining energy supply needs with the town sites. So if they're interested, and I say this to anybody who might be listening, if anybody is interested in looking at third-party sites, public or private, for purposes of the town to be an off-taker, now is the time to put that together and give us a price. Because otherwise, the town's goal is to try to reduce our costs as much as possible, and to the extent we can do it on town land through this RFP, we would be able to potentially fill our supply needs.
So in terms of the timing on that, if they already have the permits in place and they're working through the interconnection at the moment, and they are working separately from this RFP, technically, right? because they already have the land and the position and whatnot. If they build the project, you would like them to sign a PPA in coordination with the RFP? How do you envision the timing to work with the RFP? And I assume that some of the projects that are going to be built through the RFP may come on later than maybe the MBTA because they're further along.
Right. So the RFP is only for the town-owned sites. So under Chapter 30B, we have to, except for one instance, and I'll talk about that one instance, the town's required to do a competitive procurement to be able to lease town sites for any purpose, including solar energy arrays. So there are 6 sites that were approved for potential lease by the town at the town meeting. This RFP has gone out to bid for those 6 sites. As part of the document, however, we have said we are interested in developing microgrid. That's the bigger context, that we are open to having bids for the town sites that are for solar and batteries and other associated equipment, or we say solar and associated equipment, for example, batteries. And we've given them access to the conceptual framework for microgrid that we've developed, and given an update on what our phase 1 study currently is, which we'll talk about next. And that's all for the town-owned sites. But we are going to be making a decision on the bids that we receive. At any time, anybody could have gone to a third-party site, made a proposal to the town to sell us as an off-taker the energy under an agreement. And the town manager could have signed that without going out to bid. There's no requirement for competitive procurement because it's not a town-owned site.
So what you're thinking about is first come, first serve type mentality.
Well, it has to be, because if we sign a contract before the end of the year to get the ITC benefits, we have to commit to that contract. We can't sign a contract to develop solar to get the benefit of the ITC and then cancel it because somebody...
ITC doesn't matter. The ITC is only about the developer's ability to safe harbor the equipment that they need, and they can come online by 2023. So they're under no time crunch to accelerate the development of their projects. The only thing that they may be missing is revenues within that 2-year time frame between now and 2023. But the economics are going to remain the same. They still get a 20-year PPA. Is that what it is with the town?
They would get a 20-year PPA, but the question of the ITC is, have they already bought the equipment or not? Do they already have a contract for the off-taker for that equipment or not? And so there are some developers who may not have already grandfathered in solar energy equipment.
Yeah, that's something that we as a town don't necessarily care about, the way that the developers manage their safe harbor equipment strategies. All we care about is getting the best project, the best customer, and the best price, right? The combination of the scoring system that we set up. And I guess I just wonder, we want to be transparent about the timing, and obviously some of the facilities that are going to be built are going to require some work, and the timing of those projects may not come online as quickly. So, and maybe I haven't seen the numbers on this, but let's say the police station, the fire department, and one of the schools get built. We're at 20% right now based on the current solar canopy or the solar that exists at the DPW station. How quickly do we get to 100%? And then when we get to 100%, do we just cut it off? Or because we're going for the microgrid, we want to start serving some of the residents, do we shoot for higher than 100% as an off-taker for the town?
So serving the residents is not done through an off-taker agreement with the town. The town's off-take agreement is only for the town's municipal load.
Yeah. So you cut it off at 100.
Well, I mean, just for example, my understanding is that the potential canopies on the MBTA sites, 1.7 gigawatt hours, or 1.7 megawatts. And the potential sizing that we have left is about 1.85 megawatts. So that would take up almost our entire usage. And if they don't get into the game now, we might not be able to use that much as an off-taker, which could make it less economic.
And they could always go and sell that power elsewhere too. And then
In
still
theory,
have, yeah.
in theory, if they can get an off-taker, they could sell it elsewhere. But it's nice to have a municipal government as a 20-year off-taker.
Yeah, for sure.
Steve.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like we're not worried about getting enough renewable solar to satisfy all the town's needs. Is that true? In any event, I want to just mention that I was at a meeting earlier this week, a Zoom meeting with a couple people from Marshfield, and apparently they're signing contracts now for 12 megawatts of solar power at different locations in town. And that's far more than the town needs itself, the municipal facilities. So they're going to be looking for off-takers. I don't know if we would be interested in investigating that, but if we are, it might be worth calling a town manager and inquiring.
So sorry, Steve, just tell me again. So Marshfield is building or they're procuring? And then
I think it's the same thing we're doing. They're signing contracts for installers to put in, developers to put in 12 megawatts in total solar arrays.
Mm-hmm.
And they plan to use most of it for their town facilities, just like we do with a power purchase agreement. But 12 megawatts is far more than their town facilities consume. So they're going to be looking for off-takers of excess power, I guess.
That's risky, I think, under Smart 2.0.
Yeah, that might be something that we could talk, because we had the GE presentation that we received. And I imagine when they are structuring a microgrid that they probably want as much behind the meter generation as possible to be able to pull from if necessary. And especially if you're coupling it with storage, because even though our generation, what'd you say, 1.85 megawatts?
Megawatts. I think that's what's left.
That's around the clock?
No.
It's just the total amount for that you need to, like, anyways, so in terms of the thinking of pursuing a microgrid, you want to maximize the ITC, you want to get as much behind the meter generation as possible. And yeah, like to your point, Steve, if there could be a way for you to aggregate all that power and then sell it off to residents or CNI customers in town, or to the harbor that's being built, or to the, I don't know, Hingham Lumber, whoever it may be, and then us acting as a middleman on that, or liaising, because obviously the developers want to deal with the municipal off-taker because we have the credit qualities that everybody wants to deal with. They don't want the risk of doing an off-take agreement with maybe a CNI customer who may not be around in 10 years. They know that the town will always be around. So I don't know if that's a consideration, but it's just going to be interesting to manage.
I don't know if it is either. So Michelle, can you, I guess, what's the right way to track this down? I don't know if the town is interested in being a middleman, for one thing. But the second thing is there's risk associated with that you don't find buyers who are willing to pay the price that you need to cover, or the price that you've committed to pay. Yeah. And the third is, I don't even know if municipalities in Massachusetts are able to do that, act as the aggregator. I think not. You'd have to have, I just don't think that that's something, unless obviously you're a municipal co-op or a municipal light company. But I don't think a town that's not a municipal light company or municipal co-op has the ability to do that. But it's something to look into, because as we start talking about a microgrid, we need to have more generation behind the meter than the town consumes.
Yeah, because the fear would be as if these guys that are building the MBTA station were to come and sign a contract quickly, then you're running this RFP for these 6 sites, and then there's barely any generation left.
The point is, we would look at the price. The point is about price transparency. We don't know how much a canopy costs on an MBTA site versus the school parking lots. We don't know how much the rooftop solar costs on the schools. We don't know how much it would cost to put it on open land, like the slope in the back of the high school, middle school. So the whole point of this RFP and encouraging third-party sites that developers may be able to develop, especially if they're in town, is to get some of that price transparency and use the cost savings goal of the town to start building more of that renewable.
And just remember, I made the point before about the canopies. They already collect 6 cents more than what you would get from a ground mount. So they get their cost offset by the way that the SMART program is structured. And so the only thing they care about is the power to lock that additional revenue stream up when they're already receiving these incentives from the SMART program, the Clean Peak Standard, and all those other things. So I think the power price is going to be the same regardless of where it's located, I would assume.
We can't assume it. We don't need to assume it. We can ask for pricing through the RFP and through any other interested developer who has a third-party site.
Yeah.
But we would encourage them to submit their proposal to us as we're going through this process, so we have some ability to compare. Steve, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, no, I was giving a thumbs up to what Adam was saying there about the 6 cents additional subsidy for canopies. It's a fantastic deal there.
Yeah. There are some questions, by the way. I don't know if you want to refer to those, because I think some of the guests are chiming in terms of this conversation. Yep.
Go ahead. Michelle, do you want to manage the questions?
Sure. So there's a question from Stephen Brown. He's interested in knowing what's involved in becoming a third-party site. I don't know if that's something you want to take offline and answer later, or something you want to answer live now. There's several questions, so I don't know how you want to respond to all of them.
Okay, well, why don't I read them, and then if you know, Adam wants to chime in or others. So the question first, what is involved in becoming a third-party site? So you could become a third-party site that builds for your own usage, and that just simply requires having a developer be able to develop for that. If you would like to become a third-party site that hosts solar that produces energy that the town purchases, then we would definitely like to know who you are and have a developer talk to you. Again, not as the RFP, which is focused on the town-owned property, but as a potential alternative to the extent it's more cost-effective. So we would suggest anybody who has a third-party site that they might want to lease, feel free to write to Michelle about that, and we can potentially put out information to potential bidders who might be able to develop that third-party site. The other, so that's first question. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's good. And the other aspect about it as well is that the third-party site doesn't need to just be solar and storage. There could be potential for wind based on locations within our town.
Yes, it could be wind. Actually, it's not just solar. It could be wind. And wind might be a great alternative, depending on where they can site it.
Yeah, and that would crush our 100%.
Eventually.
Wind turbine up.
So the next is more of a comment from Steve Byrne. He said he thinks the town would lease the land to a developer who would own the solar and would need to find the off-taker. Town would get lease revenue, property taxes, etc.
Yes, so Steve, that is true. The town in theory could do that. Right now, the town has limited sites where we could host solar, as far as we know. We have asked developers to identify other sites that we might be able to use. The other challenge with that is before the town leases the site, we would have to get approval from the town to be able to do that under Chapter 30B of the municipal rules for disposition of assets. And in doing that, we'd have to do a competitive, basically a competitive disposition or competitive procurement to do that lease. And then the next is if we do have a great site that can be used for somebody else to purchase as an off-taker from a town-owned site, would we be willing to lock that up for somebody else's use versus our own for just the lease, as opposed to the potential savings that the town could obtain. So I think if we had tons of sites in the town to lease, that would be something to think about. As it is, we're working through, I think, our best sites that we've identified so far, which in some cases aren't great. I mean, every site has problems, but in our cases, we're hoping that they have good opportunities, and we're hoping that the developers will identify what those opportunities are for us at the lowest cost. And Debbie, you've been so patient. Do you have a question?
Well, I do, because, you know, I'm new and don't know, you know, all the sites that have been discussed. But I was wondering if you'd ever considered floating solar at Erin River. That is, you know, obviously not impeded by any, you know, shadows or anything. And anyway, I was just thinking about floating solar is becoming a very hot subject.
I could mention something there. I was at a alternative energy committee meeting, or just an energy committee meeting for Plymouth. I think it was Plymouth. And a developer, not a developer, a cranberry farmer was petitioning the committee to get a town ordinance to allow him to put up a solar array over his cranberry bogs. And he had researched it very thoroughly and found out you can do this without disrupting the production of the cranberries. By proper spacing and the right height above, you get a lot of solar generation and still harvest his cranberries. So we don't have cranberry bogs in Cohasset, but you get the idea.
Yep. No, there's lots of options. We have asked developers to be creative and to identify. This is where the third-party sites, so for example, on the water. My understanding is, but I could be wrong, Adam, you might know, Smart 2.0 does not
consider cranberry bogs?
To floating, to cranberry bogs, maybe it does, but not to floating on top of water or that requires cutting down trees.
Yeah, well, the lily pond would be a perfect place, except that the residents around there, I imagine, would be against it for aesthetic reasons. But you know that
Erin River's different.
Erin River, yeah.
It's very, you know, I was just up there today, and there's parts of it that are pretty isolated. I think you could have a pretty big array that it doesn't impede people's, you know, views or anything else. So it's a huge water expanse.
Well, I think we have asked developers to be creative. We have encouraged any potential third-party sites to submit that to us, or if there's another town site that we're not aware of, to identify it for us so that we can go through the process. So hopefully our developers who have been working with us and are about to submit some bids will be creative and give us some options, because that is the goal of this RFP, and encouraging potential third-party sites. I have a question from Chris Bluer on a microgrid, bundled microgrid service. What I'd like to do is save that for the next section where we talk about the microgrid, and then let him give a discussion generally on how that concept would work. But let's see, is there anything else on the RFP before we move on?
The final comment is from Steve Byrne, and he's just saying they could also enter into an offtake with the developer.
And I wonder who they is, Steve. Can you clarify?
What context that was to? That was probably in the middle of my ramble.
All right, we'll revisit that. But obviously anybody can enter into an offtake agreement with the developer, the town. The town already has an example of that. The town has saved more than $175,000 in the last 3 years with its solar energy array on the old landfill. And in that arrangement, there's not a single dollar put up front. The developer, Palmer Capital, entered into an agreement with the town and patiently waited through different variations of net metering rules and incentives to be able to finally build and then energize the solar energy array of that town landfill. So the town already is an off-taker through a long-term PPA with a solar energy array on a town site. So we are familiar with that.
Tanya, Chris also has his hand up. Can I allow him to ask a question?
So if this is about the renewables, once you bring him in, if it's about the renewables, he can talk now. If it's about the microgrid, I'll introduce that topic and then he can speak.
It is about the microgrid, so I will wait.
Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, so that's a perfect segue into the microgrid update and grants. What I'd like to do is have Michelle give an update on where we are. And just to give everybody a perspective on that update, there's a conceptual framework that we agreed upon in May and posted that has a 4-step plan to look at a potential microgrid for the reliability and resiliency of the town. Step 1 identifies 2 particular sites. One's a DPW site that is also identified as a site for the solar RFP. The other is the police fire department, which is part of a larger microgrid campus in conjunction with Harborview. That is, the police and fire department is being looked at as part of the solar RFP. But the Mass CEC study grants allow us to study each of those 2 sites. That's phase 1. Phase 2 would be to look at other potential campuses in town, private and public. Phase 3 would be to connect those across public rights of way. Obviously, we need to be working very closely with National Grid to understand what that business model looks like, what the tariff looks like, what the benefits are of doing that. And then the last would be to use those mini grids to connect them to make a muni grid, which would allow the entire town to island off whenever there's an upstream problem, or to isolate problems within the town if part of the line goes down. So those are the 4 stages of our conceptual framework. The first stage is underway with the Mass CEC study grants. And Michelle, could you give us an update on where those are? We'll then talk briefly about FEMA. Actually, before we talk about FEMA, we'll then have Chris share with us what some of the business models are about microgrids. And then we'll talk about the FEMA grant and how we, as a committee, should coordinate with planning on the town level. So Michelle, could you start off and give us an update on the Mass CEC study grants?
Sure. So I just want to let you know, though, I'm having an unstable connection error message coming through my computer. So I'm going to turn over co-hosting to you just in case I get cut off, so you don't lose the whole meeting. But so as far as the grants, we've signed all the disclosures we needed. We signed an NDA with, can you hear me?
Yes.
We signed an NDA with National Grid just last week. So I know they were hesitant to have any discussions with us until that was signed. So that has been fully executed on both sides. So we're ready to enter the next phase with GE of the study for both sites as far as a contractual basis.
That's great. We've already had a conversation with National Grid. And part of the reason for the NDA is there was a request for additional information that we could not provide that National Grid has. So National Grid now has the NDA and is able to provide some of the more detailed information for those 2 sites. So I think the next step, now that we are there, the next step is in the hands of GE Consulting and Nexamp, who are the consultants that are being paid through the Mass CEC grants. And they are looking at those 2 sites as potential microgrid campuses and helping us to identify how they might be used, how we might be able to utilize the existing solar energy array, and what we might be able to do with respect to our emergency response facility at the police fire department. All right. Any questions for Michelle on the Mass CEC? Okay, Chris, if you could share with us a little bit about the business models for microgrids and what we as a town should be thinking about. You've reviewed our materials. Thank you for the compliments. Help us understand what this might look like and how we might be able to proceed given the context of the RFP, the Mass CEC study grants, and other things we want to be thinking about.
Okay, can you hear me? Yep. Basically, a couple comments. Having lived through many microgrids in the state of Connecticut, municipal microgrids under their under their state program, their grant program. We kind of have cut our teeth on some of that in good and bad ways. But what has evolved in terms of procurement and financing is, I would say it's the next generation of PPA, where you're very familiar with that, where a third party owns the solar. What's possible now is to bundle whatever the appropriate mix is, solar plus battery storage plus wind plus some sort of generators. So bundling that together makes that project very appealing to an investor, because it's larger, generally something 500 kW and up is where most investors start looking when you bundle all that together. So my initial comment is, if possible, take a step back from just the solar RFP and consider waiting until you have the consultant's report for the microgrid. And I'm assuming that consultant will make some suggestions around where the best microgrid is and what are the best sizes for each of those different types of generation. You're right in having National Grid involved, because they do have the final say in crossing rights of way, but they're also very anxious to realize these types of projects, to provide the resiliency to municipalities. So that's my first comment, and it's probably not what you want to hear, but I think it might make sense. And that generally is known in the market as energy as a service, that third-party ownership of all the generation. And then it's very similar to a solar PPA, where the off-taker simply buys the energy, and it could be heat and electrical energy from that owner. The other offer I'll make is Schneider Electric at both our Andover campus, which is an R&D center, and we have a manufacturing and office site in Foxborough. Both of those have microgrids, and we frequently, not since COVID, but we frequently bring folks over and a tour. They get to ask lots of questions. How would this work in my community? So that's something that I'll always have out there for you when it's appropriate and safe, for the members to come visit and ask those questions and get to see something in operation. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Chris. So in the RFP, we asked for bids for solar and associated equipment, and that associated equipment could include batteries, because obviously a solar battery combination is in vogue right now. So we've given them the option of either giving us a solar only through a credit arrangement, or a behind the meter solar battery, if that's what makes sense. So I think with respect to the RFP, we have asked for that type of potential configuration. We'll see what we get. And that's, I think, probably more likely for the school roofs and for the schools versus the police, fire, and the DPW station, which have very little load, but might have more load in the case of the DPW station going forward. So we're interested in seeing what the consultant does have to say about those two particular sites. Most certainly bidders on the RFP that has been sent out can do a combined solar battery solution. And my understanding is the federal government incentives do count storage as solar equipment for if it's done in combination with a solar energy array. Is that right, Adam? I think you were the one who told me that.
That is correct. Yeah, you have to pair it with solar, and because it's an investment tax credit, so it's based on the total capital expenditure of the project, regardless of the equipment that's involved.
Right.
And I think one point to probably mention in terms for Chris, yeah, we haven't gotten the consultant report back, right? We just had a meeting, what was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago with GE. But I would assume that, and I'm assuming something else again, Tanya, so sorry, but I would assume that they would want more solar, not less solar, if we were truly trying to get a microgrid here in Cohasset. So starting off with the 6 locations that we identified, plus the existing solar array that we have, is a good start. And then the consideration is going to probably be to go bigger and put more batteries, more solar, potentially pair it with wind and some behind the meter generation as well. So I would assume that, and I think it's a good idea to see what the consultant report is going to say, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for us to continue along this process and get the RFP moving along in the right direction.
I agree. And I think any advice we can get, Chris, and I have been to your site with the Department of Homeland Security, FBI, and CIA groups as part of a public-private partnership. It is impressive to see the microgrid in action. I think one of the things we would be interested in getting some advice from you on is how do you make it work when we go beyond town load? So as you saw with the discussion we had earlier, and with what Adam just said, if we are to go to a townwide microgrid, we need to have more assets in place. And the question is, who's the off-taker for those assets if the town doesn't need the energy? Is that done as part of a community aggregation bid? Is that done as a private developer does it and takes advantage of the tax incentives as a market participant, getting capacity and others, and the town gives some, I don't know, either land or other? So that would be something, you don't have to answer it now, but I think as we continue the conversations on the microgrid, we would be interested in how you make that leap. And then the second thing is, what's the business model for National Grid to incentivize them to give us the benefits of things that currently the tariff doesn't give us? For example, pass through of the capacity payments. So those are general, I think those are some of the missing links in our plan, and those are the nuts we need to crack. So we'd be very interested in thinking through conceptually how that works. Adam, do you have thoughts on that?
I would love to know that answer about the 100% we were talking about, because I'm just curious. And it would be interesting to know, especially because Chris is on this call and he's done it before and he has experience in Connecticut. Chris, do you know what that answer is? If you can give a quick, short answer. I don't know if you have to unmute him, but.
I don't know if I unmute him or if he unmutes himself.
Somebody unmute Chris.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. So what was the question again, Adam?
So if we go above and beyond the 100% municipal load that we currently have, so the 1.875, I think the number was, megawatt that Tanya had given. So if we procure more than that, what do you do with that excess generation if it goes above and beyond our current load that we have for the town?
So generally what happens is you would net meter that to National Grid, and you would probably only get a wholesale rate. So often that is not an optimum way to do it. You try to size your generation with your load. And a comment on what I define, what you described as a community microgrid, multiple off-takers, some of them private, some of them municipal. That is a nut that has not been cracked yet. There's tremendous hurdles with the utility, and then with the commercial, contractual, legal issues with having multiple off-takers.
Yeah.
And to be, yeah.
I have a question, and this is, so I do utility scale solar and wind, so I don't get involved in the small residential stuff. But my question is, and I don't know if this is possible, if you could do a municipal offtake agreement, let's say for instance that a developer were to go in and develop something above and beyond our load, so it's not load following, it's just additional capacity on the grid, and the town would be willing to be that off-taker to get more solar generation located within the town boundaries, and have a index to the net metering amount that National Grid is going to be selling or paying the developer for that excess generation, right? So you have an agreement in place where the town is technically the off-taker, the price is floating, and it's pegged against the net metering amount that isn't known, but it's going to be through the 20-year term between whatever, 3 and 5 cents, whatever it ends up being. Is that possible?
I think you'd have to go in front of the PURA. You know, again, I don't think it's been done.
Yeah.
It just is, again, we're kind of building the airplane as it's flying, you know, in terms of tariffs and rate schedules and what National Grid is willing to do, you know. So
because that net metering amount is published rate, but it's only published a year or two in advance, right? I'm not sure. Who do you have in Connecticut? Are you National Grid or you Eversource?
We're half of us is Eversource, and about 2/3 is Eversource, and 1/3 is this small company called UI.
Oh, yeah.
So we've done microgrids in both of those territories. Connecticut did pass legislation allowing municipalities with microgrids to cross rights of way. But we haven't answered the question of multiple off-takers, public-private off-takers. You know, what if in 2 years the gas station that was originally part of the microgrid goes out of business? You know, how does that come into play with the overall contract?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So, you know, clearly there's some missing pieces. We understand that we're skating towards the puck, as I've said many, many times, using a New England phrase. We're skating towards the puck because not all of these issues are resolved. California seems to be ahead of most states, all states, with respect to microgrid. I think they're contemplating microgrid tariff if they haven't already passed that. And so that's something for us to be thinking about. And FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, just came out with Order 2222. And what that order does is allows for behind the meter assets such as solar, such as storage, such as electric vehicles, diesel units, gas units, to participate in the wholesale market. And that's a very big change from what traditionally has happened, where there's been a big line between the wholesale markets on the high voltage system and retail markets on the lower voltage distribution system. So there's a lot of changes that are currently happening. We in Cohasset would love to be a demonstration project on how to make it happen. And we're the perfect demonstration project for this, which leads us to the next topic, and that is the FEMA $500 million in building resilient infrastructure and communities. This is an ongoing grant process. The last deadline was, I think, September 30th. That explicitly talked about municipal microgrids. And this one also, which has a deadline of January 29th, 2021, talks about reliability and resiliency and giving money to municipalities that want to make their building infrastructure more resilient. This is a 75-25% match. So the town, for example, and this is another reason why we've moved forward with the solar energy solicitation as part of the RFP on town buildings. If the bids come in and only provide solar with a developer, the town could, if we were awarded this under a FEMA grant, pay for a battery storage asset. We could pay 25% of that total cost, and the 75% in theory could be supported by a FEMA grant. And that would obviously be a much more economic solution than doing an energy as a service. But again, there's lots of options that we're looking at, and this is one of those grants I think we need to be thinking about once we get the RFPs and have better clarity on potential pricing for solar, potential bids on a solar battery solution. We might be able to, and the study on our 2 sites, we might be able to make some educated decisions about how the town should proceed with a potential FEMA grant application. Now that leads us to the last, which is coordination with planning. And Michelle, I know you've put yourself on mute and you put me in charge which by the way is the first time I've ever been in charge of a Zoom meeting with this type of meeting structure where you can bring people in and out. So I don't quite know what to do, but
I'm still here.
good. So can you talk to us about planning and how we might be able to, as a committee, have better communication with the town planner?
Sure. So I did speak to the town planner, who's Lauren Lynn, regarding this opportunity and the need to bring her to one of our meetings. Her recommendation is, because it is a rolling grant application, that it would be best to receive some of the information back from the solar bids and then regroup. And I believe that's what you're suggesting as well. So she would love to meet with either you, Tanya, as the chair, or a couple of members in a small subcommittee to really formulate a plan as to how to move forward and moving towards that deadline of January.
Okay. Any questions to Michelle on this? I think this is something the microgrid subcommittee should do. Not just me. I think the microgrid subcommittee should be able to meet with her, talk through the conceptual framework that we've laid out about why we're pursuing potential microgrid, and get her feedback on how that ties into the broader town priorities. And we obviously in our committee are very focused on one aspect of the town, and there's a broader town context which she, as the town planner, is involved in. So I think creating that communication, the microgrid subcommittee is the obvious group to do that. We can share with her and walk through the conceptual framework, microgrid framework that we put together, and why we think that that's an approach to pursue. And then in that context, we can explain what the initiatives are that are underway. And then she'll have a better idea about what we're doing, why, and she will know and be able to explain to us how that ties into the broader town objectives.
At some point in time, sorry to interrupt, could we understand a little bit more about the town planner's role vis-a-vis some of the other select board, town manager, Michelle's role? I'm unclear exactly what her role is. We don't have to take it up here, but you can.
Oh, I think Michelle can give us a brief description now.
Yep. So Lauren is the town planner. She works with many of the committees, including, your zoning committee, your planning committee, the master plan committee, harbor committee. She works with all the committees in town that are promoting economic growth and change in the community. I work with Lauren in many aspects when it comes to procuring different goods and sites, because I'm also looking for grants for all the committees that I'm a liaison to. So that's how Lauren and I work together. But as far as a bigger picture, I don't know if you want to rope Chris Sr. into these conversations as well. He's been commenting quite frequently about the need for a microgrid, as well as the select board. Very excited. This is one of their goals. So I think the more people we have involved in this conversation, the better the turnout will be.
I totally agree with that. So, Michelle, does that answer your question, Pat?
Sort of. It's good enough for now.
The town planner is a part-time staff member of the town. I think she's part-time.
She's full-time.
Full-time. Okay, we used to have a part-time planner that we shared with another town. So she's a full-time staff member, and her goal is to make sure that town decisions and investment and plans are basically in line with each other and for the betterment of the town, given the town's priorities. Debbie.
So this probably isn't the time right now to sort of get a brief on microgrids, but my understanding of a microgrid is basically to supply the town with power if we have a power outage. But right, and that's the main focus. But what I was wondering about is when they need to shave the peak, for example, is that part of it, is activating our microgrid to be able to shave the peak? Because I know, for example, my Tesla, they've been saying that there are programs eventually where they can go in and they can take the power off my Tesla and use it in a very small way, but to actually even out the peak.
So that's a good question. So how we're in the conceptual framework, the way we're using terminology is a microgrid is basically a combination of generation and storage and software that can supply a campus or a property. So it might be the schools, or it might be a church, or it might be, and that's for you, Steve Brown, or it could be a, like the library, or it could be a private-public partnership like the swimming pool and the senior center, but it doesn't cross a right of way. So that's what we've been calling a microgrid, and that's generally because there's no business model yet for utilities to allow somebody else's wire to cross their public right of way in the franchise territory that they own. That right now has been the dominant format of microgrids. We, in our framework, differentiate a microgrid, which is within a certain boundary that doesn't cross public rights of way, to a mini grid, which would be able to extend, for example, in the downtown area. We could string a line, if we can figure out the right business model with National Grid, we could string a line from our solar energy array down to the town hall. It crosses the public right of way, and that way we could use it either directly or as a backup when we need it, when there's an outage. So that we've been calling a downtown mini grid or a mini grid. The muni grid is what we're referring to be a town-wide. With 3 switches, we can island off the entire town resident commercial load. And so we've been calling that a muni grid because it's more municipally wide. Microgrid has been used to describe all of those things. And so the nomenclature is still being developed, but we've differentiated for our purposes between those 3 different levels, mainly because there's a lot that's required to get from one step to the next. The benefit of a microgrid or mini grid or muni grid, but especially a microgrid, keep it at the smallest level, is it can be reliability that pays for itself. And the way it pays for itself is if you're only investing in all that equipment for when the lights go out, generally it's not going to pay for itself unless you have a lot of outages. And we have a lot of outages for the US. We don't have a lot of outages like India or Chile. So there it might pay for itself. But what you can do, although again, this is another one of those nuts that have to be cracked, which is how do you get paid for it? In theory, you could use that microgrid to sell capacity into the wholesale market. You could use that to provide ramping up or ramping down to help support the grid through the distribution lines into the wholesale market. That just had a FERC order come out that starts to describe what that might look like, but there's nothing right now on the federal level, there's nothing right now on the local level that describes how we could get paid for that. The closest thing that exists right now in Cohasset is the National Grid program, called a Tesla wall. They will compensate you a certain amount of money on your bill, and that's in exchange for having the opportunity to turn it on to relieve some of your load during peak times for the peak shaving. Does that make sense?
Because I think having a Tesla, I don't have a Powerwall, but I think that's where I've sort of been hearing about the concept of getting reimbursed, and quite substantially, actually. So I guess it would be through that, but.
So it's the Powerwall. The Powerwall program is in place. The ability, it's called a vehicle to grid, V2G, of using electric vehicles to be able to support the grid doesn't exist right now. There's not a single place that I'm aware of where it exists in the United States. And I'm not even aware of any place internationally. where it exists. And it may never exist. I've talked to automobile owners, even though in theory it could exist, there may be things like the wall, which are the better mechanism for allowing that to happen. But you can think of it as reliability with a payback, or reliability that pays for itself. And that would be something that we'd be very interested in thinking about, but we're skating towards the puck. It doesn't exist right now.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that.
No problem. Chris, did you have something to say? I see that you're off mute.
Chris Bluer?
Yes, Chris Bluer.
Oh, I didn't know I could take myself off mute. I didn't mean to do it. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
I'm listening, just listening.
Okay, very good. So, updates on other initiatives. We're at 9 o'clock. We did schedule, I think, to 9:30, but if we could close up soon, that would not be a bad thing. Update on other initiatives. If we could talk about Solarize Plus. Steve, if there's any update, I think you gave us a good update last time, but if you could just reiterate where we are on.
Okay, since last time I had a good conversation with Lisa Dobbs of the Clean Energy Center. She answered a bunch of my questions, and I was a little bit mistaken about why they weren't offering the program, the formal program for next year. It's a budgetary thing. The state is under a budget crunch, and so they didn't feel they could, it was something of lesser importance, and they felt they could cut. So that's why they're not offering the program where they give towns money for outreach and so forth. But in any event, they still have their staff, and she was very friendly and very willing to help, and there's a lot of things they can offer us to help us be successful in doing this. And so I told her that we wanted to find out information about other towns around that have been doing it and what their experience has been and so forth. And she sent me a whole bunch of documents, and I passed those on to Debbie. And Debbie's been reviewing them. So I'll let her go ahead and tell us what she found out.
So I also had a talk with Lisa, and she owes us a few more documents actually than what she sent. But she did send us a number of things. Things like, RFPs and a lot of templates that we can use for this. Basically it's interesting because I'll talk to you later, Steve. I've been waiting for you to come home because I have some ideas, but they are talking about moving, when they do get some money, into a decarbonization program that's broader than just the Heat Smart or the Solarize program. And that's kind of what I've been thinking about too, where you bring in, some more options as kind of a menu kind of a thing, and then do an educational thing around it. So we talked a little bit about maybe even, kind of being sort of a piloting it a little bit. But you and I need to talk about it. Are you still away? What happened to you're muted. You're muted, Steve.
That's okay.
Yes, I'm still in Ohio, and I'm not sure when I'm coming back, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Family problems out here I'm trying to handle, so.
Oh, wow. Yes, I'm so sorry about your dad.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you haven't heard, my father passed away last week.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
100 years old, and I guess he was.
Yeah, he just had his 100th birthday, right? Which was a fantastic event. Now, this was only a month ago, but at that point, he was still able to enjoy this, and hundreds of people wished him well. And it was fantastic. Oh. So he had that, and then he went out with a bang. So
that's
yeah, that's so.
But I'm not over the hump here with problems here in Ohio. So
okay. So will you? Can the two of you continue to monitor this, and maybe as Debbie, you go through the information, thoughts might be able to materialize about how we might want to think about it in the context of Cohasset, and maybe it doesn't have to be at our next meeting in November, but whenever it's a good point to report, definitely let us know, and we can put you at the top of the agenda.
Well, I have a number of thoughts, but I thought I don't want to come right in and with guns blasting or whatever. But anyway, yeah, so we'll see about that. But I know we have a little bit to report, Steve, right, on the aggregations.
I think the important thing here from our contacts with Lisa is that there are templates, there are RFPs that other towns have used, there are contracts and so forth that they have signed and so forth, and outreach plans and everything. So we're not starting from ground zero here. There's a lot of material, a lot of past experience with other towns that can help us get going. So I think that's the important thing to realize.
Do we have a deadline associated?
No, since there's no formal program, we don't have to. Last year was a competitive process where you had to, each town who wanted to do this had to fill out an application, and then towns were in competition with each other to win a grant from the Clean Energy Center. But now there's no deadline because we're all on our own and we're doing whatever we want. So in that sense it's better, but then on the other hand, we're not under the gun to get something done quickly. So we have excuses to delay, unfortunately, but that's kind of the situation.
I'd also like to volunteer to help if there's something I can do.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot, Pat.
Oh, that would be terrific. Yeah. So, anyway, hopefully we can really talk about this, and I don't know, we'll email each other about when you're coming back.
Yeah, we can talk by phone or Zoom or whatever.
Okay, so if you could, just when you're ready to present some thoughts on how it ties into the Cohasset, what we might want to do, different options, what you've learned, I'll keep you on.
Yeah, one big question I have is, what do you think the town would be interested in? What kind of renewable technologies? This is open-ended. Of course, we're talking about solar, but solar with batteries. But we want to get into geothermal or heat pumps, probably heat pumps. What about electric vehicles?
I think, Steve, we're looking for your subcommittee.
So the question is, how can we find out what the town would like? That's
well, that we're looking for your subcommittee to let us know, and maybe it's we put out a Survey Monkey or
that's
some other type of solicitation, or try to put something in with the Water Commission.
Yeah, I'll talk with Deb about that. We'll work something
right, because I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts about a way to approach it with some sort of maybe a tiered, where people just take an option. And anyway, I have some real thoughts.
So it sounds like things are starting to mix, but we still need to finish the mixing, put it in the cake pan, put it in the oven. And
we have so far to go because we haven't been able to talk. So we're just, literally, I only just got on, and we're just trying to.
Oh, no, that's good.
Get away.
I know this for everybody's benefit. This is Debbie's second meeting as a committee member, but she's been on subcommittees for us in the past and done an amazing job. So I know that we'll get great work from you. So whenever you're ready to give us some updates, more information, start to socialize what the options are, how we might find out what the town might be interested in, bring it, and I'll put you closer to the top as opposed to up at the back.
But I did remember that there was some discussion about, you kind of wanted to put the community aggregation to bed before we got really into all of this. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be planning and ramping up.
Yeah, well, early in the year, when we were trying to set our priorities, we said that the Solarize Plus Heat Smart programs would go to the end of the queue because, first of all, the applications weren't going to be due until the end of the year. And so there was no reason, and we had other things that we felt was more urgent. But now you see, it's not going to, our work on this is not going to interfere with the aggregation thing. And there's no application that we got to fill out. So
so we have to be self-motivated. So
we have to be self-motivated. Yeah, that's my point.
That's an action item with a box around it in our minutes with your name at the very end, as I'm sure you the minutes. That's what we do to keep everybody honest. So we're looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are, and
well, maybe Debbie and I and Pat can have some kind of presentation at the next meeting, and
it's
in concrete.
Great.
Can we shoot for that?
You let me know. You don't have to commit to it now, but it is an action item for you to continue to understand this program and how it could benefit the community.
Yeah.
Okay. And community, speaking of community, let's do community aggregation next, and then we'll move back to electric vehicles with a report from Michelle on where we are on that, and then any other new business.
Okay, so on the community choice aggregation, our broker, Good Energy, John O'Rourke, sent us a note a few days ago, which was fantastic. Things are moving at the DPU, and the DPU wants to hold a public hearing, and they would like somebody from each of the communities there. So he sent this email to Chris and who else? He sent it to you, Michelle?
It went to Chris and Michelle, and I think there were 4 on there.
Okay, but the important thing is, yeah, there's going to be a public hearing at the end of the month, toward the end of the month. He did not give any detail, a Zoom meeting. He didn't give a link or details about it. That he said that would be coming later. But the important thing is that the town is obligated to post the announcement. By tomorrow is the deadline. So I haven't talked to Chris about this. I was just copied on the email, so I was going to ask Michelle if you know what the status is. Has it been posted yet, or what do we have to do?
No,
I don't know.
It has been posted.
It's been posted. Okay, fantastic. So we've done our job so far on that. You're muted.
You're muted, Tony.
Sorry. So what's posted?
The announcement about the meeting. Here, I'll read to you what he said. I just had it here. Let's see. Where is it? I had it just in front of me a moment ago.
Okay, you don't have to read it. I guess Michelle.
Okay, he just said that there was going to be a review meeting. I forget what the date was. October
29th.
26th, 29th?
29th, I think it is.
Yeah, the 29th. And he strongly advising that somebody from Cohasset should be there to represent us. And all the other towns are, it's not just Cohasset, but it's also with Scituate, Marshfield, and several other towns that, sorry.
All right, so who is going to represent the town? Has that been?
Well, he was suggesting Chris, but it doesn't have to be Chris. We have to talk to Chris about this, who we'd like to represent the town.
Okay, so Michelle, are you coordinating with the community aggregation subcommittee to make sure that we have somebody to represent the town?
So I was under the impression Chris was going to represent the town, but I will circle back with him tomorrow and report back.
Okay, so if you could do an action item on that, Pat, for Michelle to confirm with Chris that he is going to be representing the town, and if he's not, to let us know if somebody from our committee needs to do that. And that's important, given the time frame. Okay, so that's good news. So that's community aggregation update. And then when the next steps are, once that's approved, we start marketing, or Good Energy starts marketing, and we do our part to help market what the options are. Correct?
Right.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I presume that DPU is going to quickly approve our plan after the public hearing. I mean, John didn't say that, but it sounds like a final step in the process.
Okay, but John will advise us on what we need to do with marketing.
Okay. The question that I have in terms of someone that chooses a retail supplier over the basic service that's provided by the utility is, how does the pricing compare to the alternative options that already exist? Is it more or less competitive? Do we know that?
Well,
have they provided that information?
Well, we certainly hope that John is able to get us good rates what can I say? Those rates haven't been set yet, obviously, because we have to go out to bid, and it depends on what what the suppliers what their proposals are.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that almost every single town that's done this, and there's been like 160 towns, something like that in Massachusetts, and almost every single one of them, with maybe only one or two exceptions, have gotten rates that are less than what the base utility rates are. So,
Steve, didn't you tell me that Plymouth?
Yeah, Plymouth just recently renewed their town aggregation plan, and they got a very excellent rate for 100% renewable energy option. So
way below the
well, actually, I found out I was wrong about that. It came in about the same as the base utility rate. So they got a really good rate for 100% renewable energy. Plus, they had the other options, or I think. I'm not really sure.
We'll see. We'll see when he goes out to bid. We won't know until then.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying that the market seems to be okay right now for this kind of program. So we have hope that we can come up with good prices.
Good. All right. Thank you. Michelle, is there any update on the charging stations, and should we keep this on the agenda, or do we want?
I think I can just give you the final update until something else progresses. So we did submit an application with National Grid for 4 additional charging ports. So 2 stations, and 2 would be located at Milliken Field. And an additional 2 would be in the town hall parking lot. Because National Grid's incentives have changed, we're waiting to see how much they'll fund of the project. Mainly because Milliken Field, there's not a whole lot of construction with that project, unlike our other projects where there were heavy construction costs. So we're gonna wait and see what National Grid will give us for those charging stations. And Town Hall is also not a heavy lift. So we're just waiting to see how much funding we can get from National Grid and if it's worth our while to continue to pursue. I know Brianna has been doing a lot of work with the assessors department trying to figure out how many electric vehicles are in town. She's done a great job of trying to compile that data. I don't know if she wants to give an update. I see she's on here. I know she was, Brianna. So I don't know if she wants to give a quick update as to that. But as far as the charging stations, as soon as we hear back from National Grid, I can give you an update.
Great. What are you finding? Can we get some data on this?
So I was looking into it. There is an EV hub with the RMV that would allow us to have all the data we need. I think by town, like we could look at Cohasset specifically, but I'm waiting because they don't have Massachusetts on the EV hub yet. I don't know why. They have it for Connecticut and other states around us. So I emailed them and they said that they are currently working with Massachusetts. So if that goes up, that'll make our lives a lot easier. But that might be a year out from now. I don't know when. And I also, with the assessors department, they managed to get me on the RMV website. So I have access to individuals' car data so we can figure out how many electric vehicles are in the town. But you have to like individually click through each person, read their vehicles, determine if it's electric. And it only shows you 500 options total. And so there's something weird going on with the site. So we're trying to figure it out. And I don't know why the site is set up the way it is. I would prefer just like a data dump because I do have a list of the models so that we can just search those. So as soon as we figure that out, we'll have the data.
Yay. Well,
wonderful.
Thank you for all of your hard work on this because this does not sound like it's clean.
So, Brianna, so when you talk about a data dump, so can you sort right now by make and model? Because, I mean, shouldn't that just spit it all out, really?
What do you mean on the site itself? Because that's what we thought, but when we type in the model, it just seems to be weird. She was kind of searching it with me, and if we typed in, you know, the Cohasset zip code, we got like 500 options. And then if we typed in any other zip code, we only got 500 options total, not just per page. And then If you type in the model of a car, it won't show you Cohasset. And so it's just kind of, I don't know, we're just figuring out how to, I guess, search. That's the biggest thing.
So the
I would think
things,
if you
go ahead. Sorry,
yeah,
Debbie.
I would think that if you can you get a master list of all the vehicles registered in 02025?
That's what I was hoping to find, but the biggest problem is that they're using this new site called Atlas. And so they've got everything set by individuals, and you can only go through individual people instead of, so I can't get like a data dump like I could have on the old website. She showed me one of the examples from the old website, and I couldn't use that data because it was only for 1 month, I think. And it was like, I couldn't draw any conclusions from it. But if only if I could get that, then I would have data for you. So I don't know what's happening with it. I'm just waiting for her to tell me when she hears back from the RMV site about the search results.
Okay, so it sounds like you're making progress, at least knowing what we don't know, and it sounds like you've gotten closer to what we're looking for, which is a make and model, as opposed to just the EV license plate or...
Oh, I have the complete list of makes and models, yeah.
Okay.
So I can provide that to anyone that needs it.
Great.
Oh, Brianna, once you figure it out, let us know, especially let me know, because I'm with an organization that's trying to do the same thing for all the towns on the South Shore. So we'd really like to know how to do this.
Okay. How do I can send it over to you, actually. What's your email?
srwenner, SRWENNER at Verizon.net. I'll put it in the chat. Do we have a chat? We don't have a chat. Sorry.
We have a
Q&A.
But I don't think you can ask a question.
Brianna, I can send you Steve's email address.
Steve was CC'd on all these emails.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, good. And then I have talked to National Grid about getting information on the backup generators, at least the connection for the backup generators that they're aware of. And I think this is part of their NDA. So now that we have the NDA, we can go back to them and ask for that to try to get that as well. So Brianna, thank you for all of your hard work. I also want to commend Brianna and Michelle for doing an excellent job and fielding everything that we have to do for the solar RFP. So we appreciate you helping the committee and doing the work that you're doing. So thank you very much. Okay, we are almost done. Is there any new business or matters not reasonably known in advance or something that you'd like to make sure we put on the agenda for next time?
Soapbox Derby.
Oh yeah, do you want that for the agenda for next time? Actually, let's put on the agenda for next time because we're thinking Earth Day, right?
Earth Day, yeah. April 26th? I don't know what day it was. Yeah, someday. Was it April? Yeah, late April.
Okay, so let's put that on the agenda for next month, which is a broader Earth Day awareness and what the Alternative Energy Committee might want to do with respect to Earth Day in a possibly still virtual COVID world, but we can come up with any ideas that we want and then see what can fly as we get closer. So,
Tanya, one other thing that we should add probably within the next month or two is a town hall building update. I know Steve was just talking about geothermal and things of that nature. I think we're going to be ready within the next 2 months to start discussing the mechanics of the new project. So it would be good timing to bring this board
good.
Together.
Okay, anything else? All right, so we'll just keep moving things forward. We are going to behind the scenes approach folks who would be interested in being on the evaluation committee for the RFP. So if you are interested, once you raise your hand so that we know you are interested, and if you're not interested, don't raise your hand and we won't necessarily bother you, but we still might. And Adam, your hand better go up. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right.
What is the timing of all, like, what are the next steps? Sorry, I know you guys went through it before in terms of November and December.
You know what? Go take a look at addendum 3, or I can send that to you. I can send you the link.
I saw where that one was.
That has all the details.
Was the one that wasn't working.
All right.
I swear the meeting minutes are not on that link. They're just the agenda's there.
So the agenda's there. If you look right next to, okay, you can swear and I can swear back, but I won't. Let me go to our website. Thank you, by the way, to Michelle for getting us all updated so that we appear as members of the committee.
On Zoom?
Okay,
oh,
so
yeah.
I am here and I'm going to share my screen.
Click it before you share it because it might only bring up the agenda.
No.
Oh, you know what? Hold on. Is it because August 12th and August 10th or September 10th haven't been posted because we just approved it?
Oops, I'm sharing my thing. Yeah, so correct. So if you go to the dates, okay, you can see there's a document right next to it.
That's what I was trying to look at the August 10th and September 12th. And I was like, well, I don't see it on here. And I didn't have it. I was trying to search it in my email as quickly as possible. But you only post it once it's approved.
I only post it. We only post it once it's approved.
All right. I got it. Sorry.
Okay.
One other thing. I'm sorry. So our Green Communities annual report is due November 6th. So sometime in November, we should put it on the agenda to review the final annual report.
Well, we're going to have our next meeting after that, November 6th. So do you want to do a meeting to review the Green Communities report in advance?
I don't think I think just we can report the findings.
Okay.
This report it's a little lighter than it has been in prior years, only because of COVID. Our buildings were closed for so long. So there's not a whole lot of meat in it this year, but nevertheless, we still have a report.
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda for you to report out. And is there an upcoming application for money for Green Communities, or have we maxed out on our allocation?
Nope, we haven't. As a matter of fact, we just executed our contracts with Horizon to complete the 3 measures they recommended. They have to have those measures completed and reported on by the end of this calendar year. As soon as we send that final report off to DOER in January, we are eligible for another $100,000 for next year.
Okay, so let's also have on the agenda under Green Community report and ideas for a proposal.
Sounds good.
For grants. Okay.
And, sorry, in terms of next steps, I pulled up the addendum. So the next milestone for us, we're going to have the evaluation completed by October 30th. Are there meetings that we are going to have as an evaluation committee or evaluation group prior to that date that you want to lock down now based on our availability?
Yes, but I don't want to lock them down now on this committee because not everybody on this committee is on the evaluation committee. So we need to pull.
So you'll send an email?
Yep. Now that you've officially enlisted. We'll coordinate. And that's what Brianna is here for. She's keeping us organized. Okay. Any other new business or items to put on the next agenda? All right. Thank you, everybody, for the 2 hours of your time on this Thursday night. We are finishing at exactly 9:30. We will going forward. I love our conversations, and I think it keeps things moving along, especially since we're only meeting once a month. But we obviously respect everybody's time, and so we'll be cognizant about trying to hasten it going forward. Yes, Debbie.
So you're recording this meeting, right?
This is recorded, but the recordings are not posted.
Right, but are they, if for example, when I'm doing the minutes, I need to access them, where would I find them?
So
I can send them to you piecemeal. They are extremely large.
Yeah.
So I'd have to send you the first 20 minutes and then the next 20 minutes.
Well, I'm just saying I might, you know, like, this is just an FYI kind of thing. Just if you know, you need to check something or whatever.
And you also have us as a resource. So if there's something maybe you missed, maybe one of us picked it up. If not, we can go back and watch the recording.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, feel free to reach out. Like, don't be afraid to shoot an email. I think we're pretty responsive.
Okay, terrific.
Okay, very good. All right. Listen, everybody, thank you very much. Stay safe. And
do we formally adjourn? I move that we adjourn.
We need to adjourn. Thank you, Steve. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Hey, Adam's laughing. Adam, it is very important that we adjourn this meeting. Otherwise,
I know. I'm surprised someone didn't jump in earlier, and it was like 9:30.
I know. So Steve has made a motion and Pat's gone. So I'll make a note of this, that Steve made the motion to adjourn, Adam seconded, and we don't have to do a roll call vote. If everybody's in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
And if anybody's opposed.
Bye.
All right. Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.